A truly unsponsored, honest review of the two most popular wireless mic systems on the planet right now. From a full-time audio production facility's point of view, the Rode Wireless Pro and the DJI Mic 2. Hey guys, it's Steve from Featherlight Studio, and we have been doing a ton of research lately. As our old studio wireless system started to become a little long in the tooth and we started looking for replacements for it, we of course found the two most popular wireless mic systems on the planet right now, the Rode Wireless Pro and the DJI Mic 2. But one of the most challenging things we found was to try to find a truly unsponsored and unbiased, honest review of both. In almost every video we looked at, over hundreds, the test products were sent to the reviewer, or it was a sponsored video. If somebody sends you something, especially something incredibly popular, you're going to have a small amount of bias. Even if you're a fair reviewer and you try to look at both sides, the bottom line is if either one of these companies send you a product, you're going to have some small bias. So we wanted to set out to make a completely honest and unbiased review of both of these incredibly popular products from an audio production facility's point of view. Both of these microphone systems have impressive specifications, and these are our findings using both of these mic systems back to back for the last 6 months in a production environment. Everything from weddings to content creation to vlogging to documentaries to musicals to music recording. And while both systems are very capable, they have some significant differences among them. So first off, let's be clear about what we're actually talking about in terms of category. The word professional has gotten very, very blurry over the last 5 to 10 years, especially when it comes to consumer and professional and prosumer devices. These guys fall into what I would call the prosumer category. They can go from truly professional work sometimes, but they can also appeal directly to the content creator or the vlogger. And then they can do things in between. But understand that these are not meant to compete head to head with really high-end professional devices that you might find on a film set. High-end VHF and UHF systems that are a lot more robust. First, we'll do a quick overview and unboxing of the DJI Mic 2. The DJI Mic 2 is a surprisingly compact package overall. A really well padded case houses the included carrying and charging case, which is surprisingly robust. The charging case is made completely of aluminum, so it's very well made. Both the receiver and transmitter combinations fit inside of it, as well as the adapters for USB-C and for Lightning. The build quality of the two transmitters is surprisingly robust with pretty heavy-duty plastic materials. However, the receiver is not built to the same standard. It feels a little flimsy and fragile at times. And the Dead Cats and the additional cabling fit into the padded case nicely. Next, let's check out everything that comes with the Wireless Pro. Rode Wireless Pro takes a slightly different approach as it divides the accessories into two different packages. And this is because Rode chose to include considerably more overall accessories in the package contents. One case is the charging case that holds both the transmitters and the receiver, while the other holds the accessories like the clips, the cables, the wind muffs, and the two lavalier microphones. These cases are surprisingly stout and robust. They feel like they could withstand a significant amount of impact without doing damage to the internal components. And the included accessories also includes two of Rode's lavalier 2 lav microphones. This is a significant offering if you consider the price of each one of these lavalier microphones cost about $100. In addition to the charging cables, connection cables, and high-speed USB-C cables, there's also additional wind muffs and mic clips to go along with the overall package. Right off the bat, let's talk a little bit about brand allegiance. So if you favor Rode products over DJI or you favor DJI products over Rode, it's going to have a great deal to do with where you came from. And because we've used a lot of older products from both companies, the original Wireless Go system, Pocket 2, these are just tools to me. If they're inconsistent in any way, which is by far and away the worst kind of tool in any industry is an inconsistent one, they're out of here. Both units can have their firmwares updated, and the included cable with the DJI system is actually A on one side and USB-C on the other. So if you have a modern day computer that's USB-C, you'll need to get a separate adapter cable that's C to C. And then each one of the individual components, the transmitters and the receiver, need to be plugged in separately. So you will plug the receiver in and then navigate to the site, find the bin file for the firmware, download it, and update it. And then for each one of the transmitters, you'll need to repeat that same process individually. It's a similar story for the Rode. However, the firmware update for the Rode Wireless Pro is quite a bit more streamlined, as it's all done through the Rode Central app. You simply plug in your device, it auto-detects whether it needs a firmware update, and if so, it has it ready to go. You simply agree to it, and it performs the update while you wait. When you're finished, it basically gives you a confirmation that the update has been completed. Simply click past the done notification and unplug the device, and you're ready to go. This is also the same process for the receiver. All right, let's talk receivers for a minute here. I love the size of the DJI receiver. And I love the fact that it's a touchscreen receiver and that everything can be done right from the touchscreen of it. And the data wheel is a godsend, without a doubt. In fact, you know, the original DJI mic system without the data wheel was a lot harder to use because it relied entirely on your ability to swipe. And if you had larger fingers, or, you know, if your hands were wet or whatever, that could be problematic, especially out on a job where things are chaotic and distracted. The data wheel makes that process so much easier because it can actually move this way and you can enter data in it. Great design. I hope this is picked up by more manufacturers. But two things. The first thing is they decided to make the cold shoe mount permanent. And this I don't get at all. And the reason why is because it doesn't fit on most cold shoe mounts. On most all small rig stuff, all tilted cage stuff, all that kind of stuff, this thing just swims in it. So yeah, you can wrap a bunch of tape and stuff around it to get it to work, but that's a pretty big pain in the butt. And I don't understand what the mentality behind this is, especially because of the fact that the clips on the transmitters are so robust and so well made. If you're using this on, you know, action camera mounts and things like that, and you just want to clip it on to, like, you know, strapping or a backpack or stuff like that, you are out of luck with this. You got to wrap it around it or tape it up or something. It's a pain in the butt. I wish they would fix that part of it. The other thing that's a big consideration is I love the fact that all the information can be gotten from the screen. But like I said, if you have bigger fingers, that can be an issue, especially if you're out in the field. And the one thing that mattered to us more than anything is that there's no app in addition to the on-screen controls, meaning you're stepping through a lot of pages stuff here. You're stepping through both of the transmitters' pages of information, and you're stepping through all the receiver information just to get to a specific thing that you want to change. And while that might be handy if you have all kinds of time in the world, but if you're not and you're on a deadline and you have a lot of stuff to do, you're stepping through a lot of stuff here to get to what you want. It is convenient. I like the fact that you can do it all from the receiver, but it would be great to have both. The Rode receiver is a little bit different story in that there's very little on here. There's no touchscreen, no data wheel, none of that. It's basically just a really high-res readout that'll give you all the information from both your transmitters as well as your receiver at a glance. You can get to a lot of the settings right on the receiver itself simply by hitting any of the two button combinations on the bottom. So you can change things like level, you can change headphone gain, you can change things that you need to change on the fly. But what I found, especially at a job where you're distracted and you got 20 different things going on at the same time, that is far more usable is the included app. The Rode Central app for mobile is killer. It works incredibly well. You simply plug this in to the receiver and you can see all the transmitter and all the receiver data at a glance immediately. And you can change it with the precision of your phone's screen, which is much faster. If I had a ton of time, then the design of the DJI might make more sense. But if you're in a time crunch or things change at the last minute, we just left the plug attached to the receiver constantly at work. And then we just walk up, plug our phone in, change the settings we need to change, and we'd be done with it. And the other thing I love about this is they have a clip on the bottom. I mean, this thing is beefy as hell. And so this is really a godsend. Having a clip on the receiver means you can clip it onto things like backpacks and straps and a GoPro mount and all the action camera mounts and stuff. And it fits correctly in almost every kind of cold shoe mount that we had. So our tilted cages, you know, our small rig cages, all these fit perfectly on them. They don't move, they're solid. The DJI transmitters are really well designed. The overall build quality is actually more impressive in person. The weight of it and just the jacket and everything feels more like aluminum than plastic. It does have a clear plastic face on it and the big gaudy, you know, I hate that any manufacturer does this. They put the, you're basically just branding for them and stuff. Overall, I really love the size of this. And sound quality is great. Now that they've fixed the default position of the low cut filter being on when you first get it. Now that thankfully in firmware is actually switched off. My one single problem with it is that it is incredibly easy to hit the side buttons. I mean, like incredibly easy. You can lock out the record button, which is great because that means your 32-bit float safety recording is safe and sound. But what you can't lock out are the things like the noise cancellation button and the transmitter button. I can't tell you how many times we have accidentally hit a button when we were handling this, let alone the client or the groom or the bride. On the road itself, the road transmitters are bigger, which I don't like, and they got the big Gotti logo as well, and it's plus this crazy high reflective thing, which is even worse. It shows up in every single shot, so rarely do we use these as on-camera microphones. These are 99% of the time. They're going to be on, in a jacket pocket, in, a belt, something like that, and we're using Lavs. But the one thing I will say about them is there's no buttons on the side. So there's very little to go wrong here. And the one button on the bottom that can be a power button can actually be locked out from the app. So that is a kind of a goldmine because it means that there's very little they can do to mess this style up. Without a doubt, DJI has by far and away the best design, I think, by a mile. Their Dead Cat system is so well and so elegantly designed. It just clicks into the top of the 3.5 jack. You're good to go. It's on there to stay. It works fabulous. It sounds great. I wish all manufacturers would actually adopt this design because it's really just a genuinely elegant design. It's a joy to use and we've had no problems with it whatsoever. My only real concern is that, because this actually doesn't fit in the case, you can't use the Dead Cat in the case. So you're constantly taking it on and off. So whether that adds excessive wear to the 3.5 jack input here, only time will tell. Rode, on the other hand, it kind of uses the fiddly Dead Cat that they used to have, only they've improved it a little bit and they put a twisting bayonet connector on it now. So once you twist on, it's on there to stay. It's not going anywhere, but it's not as convenient to get on and off. However, one advantage is that once it's on, you don't have to take it off because it fits inside the case with the Dead Cat on it. And that just makes things so much easier when you're packing stuff up. The whole thing folds up. You can leave your Dead Cats on all the time if you're using the transmitter microphones. The lavalier 2 microphones that come with the Rode kit, and there's 2 of them, they're about $100 a piece, is a pretty significant value. And it really does need to be factored in if you're considering buying the Rode kit because these are quite nice microphones. They're a front-facing diaphragm mic, and in the audio world, that's pretty common. Most microphones have some kind of diaphragm face and back. If you have a Dead Cat or a wind, a foam windsock on here, it might be harder to see that front, so you might want to mark the front of that to make it a bit easier to use. But that being said, these are really exceptional microphones. They sound great, well-balanced, they're clear. We'll do a couple of audio tests so you can hear what these sound like. But very nice microphones. The locking connector is just a plus. We're going through the Rode Wireless Pro system now, but we're actually using just a cheap Amazon mic. It's a power DJI mic. It's fairly common, one of the most probably common Amazon Lav mics. So this will give you a good example of how this mic sounds, and we'll switch over to the Lav 2 so you can hear what that sounds like. Now we've switched over to the Rode Lavalier 2 style, and this Lav mic will leave completely unedited so you can get an idea what it sounds like. Next to the Power DJIs, which is said is a fairly affordable kind of internet mic common on Amazon. The Lavalier 2 goes for about $100, and you can hear clearly the difference between the two. And now we've switched back over to our original Power DJIs microphone and placed that in the DJI Transmitter so you can get an idea of what that sounds like on the DJI Mic 2 system. And this will give you a pretty good example of what, a fairly low-cost Lav mic sounds like into the DJI Transmitter. And now for comparison purposes, we've switched over to the DJI Mic 2 system, only we're using the Lavalier 2 style microphone on the DJI Transmitter. Now we've just removed the little brass locking threaded connector there, and that allows us to plug directly into the DJI mic. So this way you can hear a comparison between the two. The DJI system has just an open 3.5 millimeter jack, so that can accept really any microphone that has the 3.5 jack. However, The new DJI Mic 2 no longer accepts TRRS, which is the tip, ring, and sleeve design. Now it's just TRS, tip, ring, and sleeve. So if you have microphones, for example, like some of the online, Amazon style microphones like Power DYs and Purple Panda and those kind of things, they're likely to be TRRS. Now, most of those come with an adapter in the package to actually convert it to TRS, which would work fine with this. But be aware of that. If you plug those in, they're not going to work like they did with the original DJI mic system, which could accept both types. So curious as to why they changed that. I'm not sure. The design of it is fine. You can actually loop it underneath the clip here in this little channel, and it makes a very secure connection here. The only thing that we discovered, especially, if all your weddings honestly look like this, but for the rest of us whose most weddings look like this, in the real world where stuff is super chaotic, goes for a really long time, things are very unpredictable and changing constantly. The one thing we found is this: if this is on the back, a belt or a bridesmaid's dress or a bride's dress or whatever, it is possible that this can come off of that belt or off that lapel. And so when this is dangling and moving around, it can come out of that channel. And that's when that's an issue. So it may not pop out completely, especially when you consider that the DJI Lav Mic is actually right angled, has a right angle connector as opposed to just this guy. So that helps it even more. But eventually that could become a strained connection. If you're working some crazy weddings, and we've worked some crazy ones, that might be something that you want to be aware of. So let's talk a little bit about features that are unique to each one of the systems. On the DJI Mic 2 side, we have active noise cancellation, and it's not bad. It's actually a pretty effective noise cancellation feature. It's only on the wireless transmission side, so it's not baked into the 32-bit float. Be able to hear that noise reduction feature in the DJI Mic transmitter. So the Rode Wireless Pro doesn't actually have that feature built into it. And I think this is pretty effective for vloggers and for streamers that don't want to do a bunch of post-processing and just want some quick and dirty noise cancellation. It does a fine job for that. It's pretty artificial sounding, but I think under circumstances, it could work pretty well. And if you don't need to use it, you can simply turn it off. And on the Rode Wireless Pro side, you actually have gain assist, and that's a unique feature to this system. Gain assist isn't magic, it's simply a compressor, but you got two different choices that you can use. You can use auto, which is kind of a fairly heavy-handed compressor setting, and what it'll do is completely level your audio. So if you have really quiet vocalists and then suddenly they get really loud, if you're doing like a talking head thing where things are very unpredictable, this could actually solve some problems for you. And then they have another choice from the auto called dynamic, which is a little less heavy-handed choice, and it just means it backs off some of the attack and release settings of the compressor itself. Compressors are fairly common tools in the pro audio world, so we're pretty used to how they work, and just like DJI's noise canceling, we probably wouldn't ever bake it into the signals. So thankfully the 32-bit float side is nice and clean and doesn't include those post-processing choices. But the compressor choices, the thing about a compressor is that it also raises the noise floor. So it's not a panacea. It doesn't solve all your problems. It can work in a pinch, but it will make the overall environment a bit louder because that's how it accomplishes that. One of the biggest features that really appealed to us when we got the DJI Mic 2 was its ability to connect via Bluetooth to a lot of other devices, like your camera app on your phone. This seemed like a killer solution to a lot of problems, especially if you're in kind of a clutch situation and you don't want to bring a bunch of gear, you're at a trade show or something like that, and you just want a quick connection to your phone that sounds great. Well, I'm here to tell you that's probably not going to be the replacement to your wireless system. It just isn't. Even if it was exactly as good as your, transmitter and wireless receiver combination, that isn't the problem. You could boost that up, you could add some highs and lows and post and stuff and make up the difference. The problem is the connection. It's just a torture test for a scooter. Both the batteries, motor, and the controller combinations all together have to work flawlessly to get all the way to the top without experiencing either total failure, like we've already experienced with our Joy. We couldn't even get realistically 6 to 10 feet away on a tripod and do a basic phone interview with our mobile phone. This is an iPhone 14, so it actually worked great. But that wasn't the problem. The problem was the Bluetooth connection itself. It just isn't stable enough to actually be a viable alternative. Now, that's a totally different thing than if you have a Pocket 3 or an Action 4 or 5 camera, because those cameras actually have receivers built into them. A completely different playing field altogether. And, I think that's really the thing there. I mean, if you're an existing DJI ecosystem and you already have a Pocket 3 or an Action 4 or 5, that's a game changer. And I think that's going to open up a whole different market, certainly for things like content creators and vloggers and streamers and things like that. How much physical storage is on each one of these devices? The DJI transmitters have 8 gig of storage in here, and getting this information off of here couldn't be easier. You simply plug this into your PC, all the files show up as a drive, you can offload them from there and you're good to go. And whether or not you feel you're going to use 8 gig or not is completely up to you. I guarantee you will if you're going to be doing a lot of 32-bit float recording. But if you're not and you're just using, the 24-bit recording that's on here, you should be fine in terms of that. As far as the Rode is concerned, the Rode has 32 gig of onboard storage. So what we found when we were out in the field, especially doing several jobs back to back, or if we were traveling doing several jobs back to back, and we didn't always have time to download all the stuff to the PC or that kind of stuff, having the extra storage, having 4 times the amount of storage was pretty nice. Getting the files off here work the same. You can plug it directly into a PC and get them, it shows up as a drive and you can download it if you want. However, the Rode app itself, if you decide to use the Rode Central app on PC, is quite a bit more sophisticated than the mobile app. On PC gives you a lot of additional features. It actually almost acts like a 2-track audio editor when it comes to things like exporting your wave in a bunch of different formats. If you want your audio exported normalized, or if you want it normalized to a specific LUFS level, or if you want it in a different format other than PCM, if you want it in a lossy format, or if you want it just in 32-bit float. Let's talk a little bit about timecode, as the Rode system offers that. The Rode system offers timecode, and if you're unfamiliar with that, it's just a way of locking multiple cameras to a stable time base that doesn't drift over time. It's an absolute reference. There are several different options on how you can use this in your system. If your camera accepts timecode, you can actually just leave the receiver plugged in, and it'll constantly update itself. If it doesn't, you can record it to one of 5 different configurations. The first one is merged. This is probably the most common, and because the receiver keeps the transmitters locked with their own time code, you don't have to worry about that. But if you have more cameras, a bigger multicam setup, the one drawback is that it doesn't jam sync to an external source. The timecode works great. It's great for long shoots, especially shoots over hours of time. It would be great, however, if you could actually jam sync it to an external source, like the Tentacle system or the Deity. Hopefully, external jam sync will be addressed in a future firmware. We did an exhaustive series of range tests for both the DJI and the Rode systems, and what we found was things got a lot more complex when you start digging into the details of each system. What we found was, while both systems were actually fairly comparable in terms of their range overall, it appears that DJI allows the signal to be transmitted even if it's dropping out considerably, and Rode actually applies a noise gate to its transmission, cutting the signal out completely when it's no longer stable. This gives the DJI the appearance of more range when the usable part of both systems is actually pretty comparable. So we're going to make our range test an entirely independent episode, as it warrants a lot more investigation, as both systems start behaving much differently when you add interference. Both DJI and Rode offer 32-bit float audio, but 32-bit has become a buzzword, unfortunately, and it's turned into a lot of stuff. But one thing that 32-bit is not is a panacea. It doesn't sound better than the onboard 24-bit recording. That isn't actually how 32-bit float works. It actually will allow you mathematically to have more headroom in the actual recording itself. However, before you get to reap the benefits of 32-bit float recording, it has to make it through the microphone and then into the preamp and then into the converter first. Those are 3 pretty major things before the 32-bit float mechanical part ever even sees the signal. But if you clip the microphone, because all microphones have an SPL rating, a sound pressure rating, and eventually that microphone will clip, physically clip in hardware, long before it ever makes it down the wire and into the preamp and then into the converter. And the same is true also with that preamp. If you overdrive the signal to the preamp, so for example, if you put line level into here, if you use this, for example, as, poor man's wireless for your guitar or whatever, which you absolutely could, you could easily overdrive the preamp in here as well. And both of those, the microphone and the preamp, can clip. And if they clip, the 32-bit float recording isn't going to fix it. So what you're going to end up instead is an incredibly clean recording of that clipped audio. The other issue too is that the DJI, while it can do 32-bit float recording, it cannot do it independently of the receiver, meaning it has to be in the presence of the receiver for it to work. You cannot use the microphone as a standalone 32-bit float recorder like the new, Mixpre's and Tascams and things like that. So if you have a Pocket 3 or if you have an Action 5 or things like that, those that have the built-in receivers can initiate that recording on the transmitter itself. But if you don't, if you just have the microphone, like you bought the mic by itself and you're using it with your phone or whatever, you cannot use 32-bit float as a standalone device. And that's a pretty big deal because the Rode can. The Rode can actually operate totally independent of the receiver. It can act as a standalone 32-bit float recorder with Lav Mic, locking connector, and everything. So if you want to just treat this like I said, like a Tascam or something like that, you can absolutely do that with the Rode, but it's important to note that you can't do that with the DJI. So as you can see, there is no clear winner when it comes to both of these products. And a great deal of whether or not you're going to land on one manufacturer versus another manufacturer is probably going to have everything to do with where you come from. They both have pros and cons in both of these systems. But if you already have a lot of the products inside the Rode ecosystem, then this is kind of a no-brainer because it so seamlessly and elegantly interfaces with things like the Rodecaster Pro and things like that. And the same is true with DJI. If you already have some of their newer products like the Pocket 3 or the Action 4, then the Mic 2 seamlessly integrates with both of those as well. So when it comes to both of these, there is no desert island microphone. There just isn't. It really depends on what your workflow is and what you need the most, the features that you need the most from either one of these two. Hey, I hope this has been helpful for you guys. If you learned something or if this was helpful in any way, please hit the subscription and notification bells. It really does help get the channel going and it helps me make more videos like this. Stay safe, be creative, add something creative to the world. It could really use it. Take care. We'll catch you guys in the next video.